Welcome to the 11% Pod. I'm your host, Johnny Bouchard. My guest today, so incredibly exciting to sit down and have a chance to dig deep into her story and have her share it with everyone. Because I have to tell you, of all the folks that I've known in the music industry over the almost 3 decades I've been involved in it, she is not only one of the most successful and one of the most well-respected, but she's also one of the most genuine and authentic people you could ever hope to meet. I first met Tamara Saviano just over 20 years ago when I first started to work with Kristofferson, and she was working as Kris' publicist, which was her title, but she really did a whole lot of everything in her time with Kris. She was working with Kris and had been for a couple years, I think, before I started. And when I found that out, I was completely shocked because I assumed Tamara had been with Kris for decades, which mathematically speaking would not have even been possible unless Tamara started working for him when she was 4 months old or something. But every time she came up in conversation, I could tell there was a long, loving, a deep, respectful relationship between her and Kris and Lisa Kristofferson as well. And more than once, if the topic of best friends ever came up, Kris would make it clear Tamara was his best friend. It took Tamara and I almost 10 years, I think, before we were able to sit down across the table from each other. I mean, we're in the digital age, so the relationship started via email, I'm sure, if I remember correctly. But I'm proud to say the friendship started on day one. And more than once, I have not hesitated to call Tamara for advice. I am proud to say that virtually every achievement she's had is one that I would not hesitate to recommend to anyone. And I'll ask you when you're coming into the conversation, set aside the Grammy win, set aside I can't even count how many Grammy nominations she's had now. Set aside the Belmont Award, which she won for Without Getting Killed or Caught, her book about Guy Clark. Set aside the Austin Film Critics Award, which she won for the film Without Getting Killed or Caught that she directed. Set that aside and listen to the journey, because I don't think you're going to find a better one. Tamara Saviano came to Nashville on the recommendation of an Americana legend and wound up not only establishing herself as someone who was both respected and admired, but someone you could trust and someone who was always going to be true to herself. And over the 20 some odd years of her career, that never changed once, which, believe me, in the music industry is not something you can say very often. On July 13th of 2025, Tamara and I sat down. I had a topic list of 5 or 6 conversation points I wanted to bring up, and the conversation took us all over the place, from stories we shared with Kris or with Guy, to the challenges that we're facing, to the ever-changing world of the music industry. We even played a quick round of How Americana Are They? Because, as I say in the conversation, there's rarely a time where I can sit with someone and say, you are the acknowledged expert, the acknowledged, industry leader on this genre of music. So we sat down, we had a wonderful conversation, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. And lastly, before we begin, Tamara, I apologize. I tried to get Jimmy Smits multiple times. He was not available, so you were stuck with me. But I think we had a pretty good time on both sides of the microphone. So Tamara Saviano on the 11% Pod. Enjoy. Welcome to 11%. Johnny Bouchard here. I am so excited to welcome my guest today, Tamara Saviano. Tamara, and thank you for taking the time out to do this.
Anything for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. We're going to dive right in with the top 5 facts, maybe, about Tamara Saviano. And I even have cards, so I feel really official. These are true or false statements. Feel free to agree, disagree, refute. This is just going to plant some seeds for the conversation we're going to go into. Number 1.
Okay.
Tamara Saviano worked as an advisor to Ken Burns and his team for the country music 8-part docuseries that aired on PBS.
True.
We're going to get into that a little bit later on because you talk about that in the book, and I love Ken Burns' approach and what he did. Number 2, after working with artists such as John Prine, Alison Krauss, and Mavis Staples, Tamara Saviano won her first Grammy in 2004 for Beautiful Dreamer, the songs of Stephen Foster.
Yes, they were all on the album.
We're going to talk also about albums versus award shows versus movies and all the fun that all those entail.
Okay.
Number 3, Tamara Saviano was invited but declined to participate in singing on the record-breaking and fundraising smash single "We Are the World."
I wish they would have invited me. That's false.
That's the one false I throw in on all my guests, and I keep hoping I'll get a yes and find somebody.
That would have been really something.
Number 4, Tamara Saviano's first film, the Guy Clark documentary Without Getting Killed or Caught, had its world premiere delayed by almost a year due to the COVID-19 epidemic that swept North America.
That is very true.
I knew that happened, but had forgotten about it till I was reading the book. We're going to dive into that as well. Yeah. And lastly, we're going to talk a lot about this because this is not how I understood it went down either way. Number 5, Tamara Saviano was hired by country music superstar and country music Hall of Fame member Kris Kristofferson over the phone before she had even met or spoken with him in person.
Yep. That's completely true.
I'm going to kind of set the outline aside because I have to tell you, so Tamara and I have known each other almost 2 decades now, and we've both worked with Kris, and anyone who knows me knows you as the one person who's worked with Kris longer than I had. But I always thought from the day I started, which was, I think, late 05, right before This Old Road came out, it always seemed like you got there a year or 2 ahead of me. It always seemed like you'd been with Kris for decades because you guys were so in sync. I just assumed you were like Helga with Jay Leno, so that you guys had been together forever.
No, 2003. Yeah.
That is incredible. And of course, I never knew Al Bonetta, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But diving into it, I'm going to ask you because I think I remember. Do you remember when you and I met the first time face to face, I should say?
Was it in Tulsa?
It was I think it was on your book tour. I think.
Yes,
without
in the bakery.
Yeah, it was at Antoinette's right down the road from Cade's Ballroom.
Which I love bakeries. Go to one in every town.
And they have good coffee. So being right down the road from Cade's Ballroom, I think they help keep each other in business. We had obviously worked together before then via email and digitally. And we're going to, I'm sure Kris is going to be on a lot of the topics today. But one more item I wanted to mention. I did not realize this. I don't think you and I have ever spoken about this. But I love to talk about the word of our Lord and Savior, Elton John, as well. I didn't realize you were such an Elton fan.
I am the biggest Elton John fan in the world.
Okay, those may be fighting words. The first concert my daughter ever went to was Elton, and the first she and I went to together that she was old enough to remember was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And
I love Elton. Yeah, everything about him.
Everything from his music, obviously being from Tulsa, I love what he did for Leon Russell, bringing him back into the fold. And if the guy's made any sonic musical mistakes, I haven't heard him because I love everything he's done.
No, he's so deep into my DNA. Musically, he's my favorite. Yeah, the best.
Well, let's dig deep into that DNA. Where's my prop? Poets and Dreamers, Tamara's book, which I just finished. A good book keeps you engaged the whole way through, but a great book, which is what this is, I wasn't even through the prologue. I love when I'm reading a book and I read a moment and I go, I hadn't even thought of it. And I have to set it down because it gets my brain working. Even in the prologue, before the book even started, I had no idea Felice Bryant was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yes, she is.
And I never thought about where she was from. I just, and you threw it in as a little side note. And I thought, oh my Lord, now I need to kind of read on Boudleaux and Felice's backstories. Because is the display still going on at the Hall of Fame for them?
Oh, I'm not sure, Johnny.
It's been a couple years. I don't know if it has been or not. But can we talk about Milwaukee and how Wisconsin, I should say, how Tamara was music speaking to you first? Were you digging things out? Did you just jump at the first music drop?
Well, first of all, Milwaukee is my hometown, and I'm very proud hometown girl. But my grandparents, great-grandparents, parents were all music lovers and played everything, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And then I started figuring out my own thing. But so music was a daily part of my life.
Well, let me ask you this, because when I think of Milwaukee, I think Rust Belt, industrial city. You got the Polish neighborhood and the German neighborhood and that time. Was music pretty prevalent across Milwaukee, like in different communities, or do you think you were kind of the outlier?
Oh, no, it was very prevalent. You know, we had the Polish community, the German community, Irish, Italian, Mexican, African American, everything, and all the different musics that went with those community. So Summerfest, which I talk about in the book, is a huge music festival in Milwaukee. But we also had Irish Fest, German Fest, Festa Italiana, Fiesta Mexicana. Every culture had their own big festival on Lake Michigan.
So there was something to dig into all summer long, I would guess, because
yes,
it being cold up there,
long.
I assume the festivals were.
Yeah. And it is an industrial city. Well, used to be when I was growing up. But really everything happens on the lake. Lake Michigan anchors the whole state, really. And then Lake Superior at the north and Mississippi River to the west. So the state is surrounded by water in three sides.
Yeah, I will tell you, folks, if you've never been to Milwaukee in the winter, it is cold. The wind whipping off the lakes is legitimately cold. But did you decide, because really your entire career that I've known you through has been music adjacent. How old were you when you said, man, this is something I want to get into or support or be part of or try to work in?
Well, I sort of fell into the music business accidentally. I had my daughter when I was 20, and I didn't start college till 25. And I went to Alverno College, which is a liberal arts college in Milwaukee, and studied communications and journalism. So I did my internship at a radio station that played country music.
And was that the most fun wins?
Yes.
What a fantastic...
That was the company mission statement.
What a company mission statement. The most fun wins. So you started off there, and I don't mean to... I just... If you and I were talking about everything we wanted to, we'd be here for 19 hours.
Of course.
But at some point, Raul Malo of the Mavericks suggested you head down to Nashville. Where was that conversation even coming about from?
Yeah, so I got to know Raul when the Mavericks were just starting, and we were having breakfast at this little cafe on the east side of Milwaukee. I almost said East Nashville, east side of Milwaukee, and he just said, "You should move to Nashville. You're creative, and you would really love it." And yeah, well, when Raul speaks.
We all listened. Yeah. I think I told you when we had grabbed breakfast in Chicago there in Marina City, I had always pictured your career starting off. I see you stepping off a bus with like a little Debbie outfit on, going, "Hey, I'm here in the city of dreams." And you were like, "Oh, it didn't quite go down that way."
No.
But Raul got you to Nashville, and that got you.
Yeah, he talked me into it.
And by yourself, you said, "Hey, just me and my daughter." How did you just pack up one day, or?
Well, I worked in radio, and so I started looking for work in Nashville. Got back to Milwaukee after a trip to Nashville, and the artist Terry Clark, who had a couple of hits in the 90s, she and her manager were visiting our radio station, and they gave me a job.
They just said, "Tamara, you're so cool."
Yeah, I said I wanted to move to Nashville, and they said, "You're hired." Yeah.
Well, I mean, weirder stories have happened. So we head down to Nashville, and we bounce around a little bit. And again, I want to try to be as respectful as possible. But then, can you talk a little bit? Can we talk about any emails Charlie Daniels may have sent out that started the whole process of you and I getting to know each other in a way?
Yeah. So, Charlie, I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened, even though I just wrote it. Charlie sent out an email that was kind of a soapbox speech about Sean Penn taking a humanitarian trip somewhere in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And he called him a traitor, said he should be thrown in jail, stuff like that. So the first time I got this email, I deleted it. The second time I responded and said, take me off your list. And the third time I responded and said something about democracy means we get to argue with the government, disagree. And then Charlie's then publicist called my boss, and basically they asked me to resign. And I said, no, you'll have to fire me. And they did.
Oh, that is such a Tamara move. Now, keep in mind, this is post 9/11. Everybody,
it was bad.
It was very divisive, but
not as bad as it is now.
Oh no, I think it gets worse every year. But and if because I had heard the story briefly and then read about it, and then post firing, there were a lot of folks coming out against you. I mean, there was kind of some hey, everybody blacklist Tamara Saviano, don't hire her type things going on. Right?
Yeah, and it didn't last very long because the Dixie Chicks happened the following week. Mm-hmm. But that's how I met Kris. Yeah.
And then you were so tell me about Al Bonetta and going in his office. I think I have it right.
Yeah.
And getting that call.
So Al, we were friends. John Prine and Al Bonetta, I rented an office from them at GAC. And so I would be upstairs drinking wine with them after work every night. So I went to Italy after I got fired, and I was with Paul. And when I got back, there were all these messages from Al on my voicemail. Where are you? I need to see you. Come in. So I finally showed up at his office, and he was always yelling at his speakerphone. Leon Russell, Studs Terkel, you never knew. And so he's yelling at his speakerphone, and he's like, she's here. Tamara's here. And I hear this now very familiar gravelly voice saying, Tamara, this is Kristofferson. I want you to come work for me.
And your eloquently spoken, well-rehearsed reply was?
Okay.
I'll be honest. I don't know how I would have responded if I walked into a friend's office. Kris was on the phone saying, come work for me.
Yeah, it was very surreal.
But it started what I know was one of the best, maybe not the best, but one of the best relationships personally and professionally you had. Because what some folks listening may or may not realize, very active I was in Kris's concert side. And you have to keep in mind, Kris was, that you have popular, then you have famous, and you have legendary. And Kris is in the legendary status. But he had movies he was making, awards. It seemed like 5 times a year somebody wanted to give him something. You were kind of around for all of it. Because even on the concert side, if you weren't there at the show, you and I were still chatting about what was going on with him next week or the week before or whatever.
Yeah. Well, Kris didn't have a traditional manager.
No.
Lisa was with him all the time, his wife and partner, business partner. And then we had an agent. We had promoters like you. We had film agent. And I kind of just was in the mix on everything and making sure the PR was handled and the marketing was handled.
Which isn't always as easy as I got to the point where I could just, so on our side, you have a territorial agent. My guy's name was Scott Pang at ICM. And then after a while, I would just call Steve Levine and say, man, what markets are you looking for? How can I step up? But the start of that relationship, like I said, when I first started working with Kris, which I think was I did 1 or 2 shows with him before This Old Road, but we didn't have a hang or a conversation. And then on the This Old Road tour, we started to. I mean, Tamara, you were like Bucky, Chris's friend in the third grade. It just always came up, and I assumed, man, you joined up with him in '72 before A Star Is Born, because everything seemed to go along.
Well, sometimes he thought that.
Oh yeah,
when he was losing his memory, he thought I was with him all that time.
I will tell you, since we're going to go all over the place, the first time I realized, I mean, I knew like Chris's, I thought the memory was slipping. He turned to me and he asked me, where were we the night that Goodman took us to Prine? And I said, it was a quiet night in Chicago, because I'd heard the story 1,000 times.
Right.
He thought I was there. He and I were hanging out and we went to check him out. But
yeah, he thought I was there in the 70s. And, of course I wasn't.
Did you ever try to explain to him that you weren't, and he thought you were bullshitting him or trying to pull one off?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he would.
I finally just played along.
Which you had to do. So I try to redirect the conversation sometimes to something that we were both on the ground on. So we're working with Kris over 20 years through all the. I will tell you, by design, when I started promoting, I was working with folks that I knew would come back into vogue. Kris and Chuck Berry and BB, they just kind of faded because the MTV thing had come along, and I knew at some point they would, and their music needed to be heard. And Kris and Lisa, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I had probably 30 different people say, so are you Kris's tour manager? And I'd always have to say, man, nobody manages Kris. Let me make this very clear.
Yeah, nobody.
I'm the promoter and I do a lot of that stuff, but if you want something, it's going to go to Lisa and they'll have a discussion. And, it's not the traditional tour manager approach.
Yeah. I would tell him to have a good show. And he'd say, don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. How dare you try to imply? He, man, the first time that Kris and I had a conversation, I had reached out to Lisa, and it was simply because I knew usually when you get a contract, it says for marketing, call this person, for production, call this guy, catering, call this. It was all the same person, and it was Lisa. And I reached out and I said, well, I know with this request, he'll at least hear it. I said, if I got 20 high school aspiring musicians together, could we do like an inside the actor's studio thing, but without the cameras? Just them and Kris asking questions. And I'm glad that I did this when I did, because the memory was still pretty strong in 05 or 04-ish. And he came, and it was going to be a 15-minute session, and he wound up talking for an hour, and he and I got to know each other. And I just said, man, can we work together again? And he said, yeah. I was going to ask you, because I have a checklist of some things I want to chat with you about. I think, because when last time we chatted in Nashville, I didn't realize you were there. I think the last show that Kris and Stephen Bruton played was the one at Bass Hall in Dallas.
Fort Worth, yes.
Paulie Beard was running it. And I didn't realize you were there with Stephen at the time, but I remember the two of them playing. And when Kris was with Stephen, it was a whole different kind of energy, because they like brought out the best in each other, I think. But that night after the show, Kris told me he was thinking of hanging it up then. Did you ever hear, like, because before he did, that he was thinking of calling it quits?
No, I mean, I noticed Kris's memory started to go at around 2011. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember when Stephen died.
It was, I want to say 09 or 2010-ish. Does
okay.
that seem right?
So, yeah. So Kris's memory was still really intact then. And even after 2011, there was nothing. 2016 is when I thought things were getting dicey. And that might have been Lisa keeping him out after that, because it helped his memory to be out and engaged and all that. But he never said anything to me about quitting.
It was, I think he phrased it as he was glad that I was there for the last one or something. And then Levine called later and we did shows and it kind of never came up again. So I thought maybe it was, just like but I just remember, because I remember standing backstage at Bass Hall, mostly because Blake was there that night. And, sometimes you had a child or two, but Blake was there that night. So
Kelly was there too, wasn't she?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So 20 years working with Kris. I'm going to say 20 years just for easy math. What was the oddest request that you had that somebody wanted him to do? Was there one where you just had to say, there's just no way we're going to do it? Or are there so many you can't even recall a single one?
There's a lot, you know, I don't even know how to answer that question. I mean, because the music business is weird anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, there were a lot of requests, and Kris would be just like, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
The thing that frustrated me the most, and the last time this happened, we were doing the Connie Nelson and I were doing the first Peltier benefit in 17 or whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted Kris to pose inside a car, not drive it, but like sit inside one. And they came up and asked me in front of Kris. And I said, don't do that. Talk to him. He can answer his own questions. Like, don't act like he's not here. And Kris said, and I said, I don't think we have time for that. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. But why would you want somebody to leave and pose inside a car? It wasn't tying in with anything we were trying to do.
Well, and award shows, they'd always want to put makeup on them. That wasn't happening.
No, as all the shows.
They weren't dressing him. They weren't putting makeup on him. That was not going to happen.
We had a conversation one time as to whether Kris had to wear a long sleeve shirt or a black T-shirt, and his justification for wearing a T-shirt was, but pointing to Flynn or Rambo Jack, whoever was with it, but he's not wearing one. But aside from that, even I had people ask me at some point. It got out on the internet that Lisa was a stylist. And I said, man, she went to law school as far as I know. You can talk to her about it. But and she said, yeah, sometimes I cut Kris's hair, but that's about the extent of the extent of doing it. Was there any odd fan encounters? Because I know, how was it? Mickey Mouse at Disneyland. I mean, we discovered, and Lisa pointed this one out to me. If we walked anywhere from hotel to venue and Kris had the guitar in his hand, he was mobbed. You had to fight him to get off. If I carried the guitar and walked 10 or 12 feet in front of him, we got about half of that. Was there any
interesting?
And the reason where this question came from, I remember we were doing a show on the United Farm Workers Run, and we had a 13-year-old kid whose mom had told him Kris was his dad.
Oh, that happened all the time. Yeah.
And believed it. And the mom, like, I don't know, I never saw her or knew her, what her mental state was. And you have to try to explain that's not the case while getting him out of the way so we can get the rest of it, because it was at a meet and greet type thing. Was there anything super level weird?
Well, people like to chase us in the car a lot.
So dangerous. They don't think about that.
And they would get really physical to get to Kris. So there were often, bumps and bruises. And by the time we would get in the dressing room or in the car or whatever we were going.
The lack of respect for a person's personal. It's one of those things where I used to think I understood people bought a ticket so they thought they were entitled to some specific type of show. But then I realized people buy a ticket, they think they're entitled to participate in the show or the activities before or after in the artist's life. Some people, yes. Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, it's the minority. Most of the shows,
it's the minority.
We didn't have a ton of issues. There was the last show that I was with Kris on in Kentucky, and this had to be very, very close to when he had called it quits. It was so bad that Lisa turned to me and she said, if you have to go on that stage, don't wait for me. And Mike Kaler and I worked out a plan where he would escort Kris off, and I'd try to just give him the space to do that. And we told the strangers, like, you guys are going to be on your own because we don't know what's going to go down. And nothing wound up happening. I mean, there was some loud people in the audience, but we didn't have to interrupt the show or anything.
Yeah. Well, and you're a big guy.
Thankfully.
So people might give you some space, but with me, I'm just the old lady standing next to Kris.
Well, I think Jamie Johnson may beg to differ because I believe.
Oh my God!
He was told. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah. So backstage at Bonnaroo, Lisa and Paul were in the air conditioning trailer, getting Kris's guitars and stuff ready. So Kris, me, and Andy Langer, a journalist in Austin, are standing backstage talking. And all of a sudden, Jamie rolls up with his entourage, and they all tumble out of the van, come walking up. And I mean, the guys with Jamie were tall, big.
TW is literally like
guys.
6'8" and 400 pounds. They're not
huge
small.
guys.
Yeah.
And so they walk up and Jamie kind of nods to them and says, "This is my muscle." And Kris looks down at me and says, "This is mine."
Which to be fair, I'd still put my money on you versus them if it came down to it.
Andy Langer loves to tell that story.
But that's because it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I know Kris, when people would ask him my role, because people would assume I was a bodyguard. And if you know anything about Kris, he wasn't the bodyguard type.
No.
But he would say, "Johnny's my buffer from reality." And when I asked him, we got hung up maybe on the way to Wichita or something. We wound up, it was one of these deals. No, it was Indiana. Side of the road, flat on the bus, and you can't jack a bus up to change it, so we're waiting, and your name came up, and I remember Kris turning to me and he said, "Tamara's my best friend." And Kris was sincere and genuine in everything he did. He wouldn't have. And a time or two afterwards, I brought up that he'd say, "Man, she was my best friend." And I asked him one time, I said, when I'd had to go out and change guitars out in the middle of a show, because Lisa was like, "That guitar's so out of tune, we have to." And I went out and I said, "Man, if we don't change this, Lisa's going to whoop both of us. So like swap out guitars." And after the show we were talking, and I said, "Man, I'm glad I've never had to have Lisa or Tamara mad at me." And he said, "Oh, Tamara can get hot." And Lisa's got a great right hook, but yeah, you don't want to be on the receiving end either way.
And the thing about Lisa, she is so good and so sweet.
Oh, yes.
And nice to everybody all the time. I want to be more like Lisa.
I will tell my friends know if I'm talking about Kris advice or how it's Kris and Lisa. They're kind of one being. And the best description that I have ever heard that I think applies to Lisa was when Lisa, the first time I ever met Connie Nelson, she said, "You'll love Connie because Connie loves everybody." And that's how I feel about Lisa. And people know.
Connie is the same.
Oh, very much so. And folks in my inner circle know there's a list of about 4 or 5 people. If they ever call, yes, tell me what I'm doing later. But and the 3 of you happen to be on that because Connie's one of my favorite people too.
Yeah.
Something else that you touched on in your book that I don't think most people ever got, because I would tell people this and I think they thought I was joking. Kris still got nervous before shows. Everyone that I worked on him with.
Oh yeah.
Folks would ask me what the pre-show routine was, and I said he made a turkey sandwich, and he sits in the back of the bus and gets nervous till the show starts.
He would look out from behind the curtain and say, "Don't these people know I don't know how to play guitar or sing?"
Oh, yeah. He would.
And I'd say, "It's the songs.
It's the songs.
They're there for the songs."
He would go out on stage, and usually after Shipwrecked in the 80s, which is what he tended to open with, he'd turn to me and say, "Well, let's see how long it takes me to screw this up." And one time I yelled back, I said, "I'll give you all night." And he laughed and said, "You're on. Let's do it. Okay, let's go for it." But he really did. And I don't think people, I remember the same meet and greet where the kid thought Kris was his dad. A woman saying to Kris, "Do you know how much we love you?" And Kris said, "Yes, I do." And I thought if she had asked, "Do you know why we love you?" I don't know if Kris could have given an answer, because he always was. I think the word you used that I loved, I highlighted it, was befuddled.
That's Lisa's word. Yeah.
What a great word, though. That described how he was. I'm assuming same at award shows and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I found it funny that, you and I have both worked with a lot of celebrities, and Kris is the least celebrity of anybody I've ever met.
I would tell people, Kris's desire to be famous is directly proportional to his desire to be famous is inversely proportional to how famous he was, because he really wasn't there for any of that.
No, all backstage, no gig.
Yeah, and in the almost 2 decades that I worked with him regularly, never changed. The Kris that I met, now of course I didn't know Kristofferson. I didn't know him in the 70s or 80s or any what may have happened beforehand. But I told people the Kris I met I remember him telling people he never saw himself as a poet because he thought that sounded too pretentious. He thought he was just a songwriter. He just wanted to be a songwriter. That's what he wanted to do. And if he was playing in front of 10 people or 10,000, he was just as happy either way, or just as nervous either way. But
yeah, he was always completely down to earth.
Oh yeah.
And if anybody tried to give him the star treatment, he rejected it right to their face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, man, I'm not taking that.
That ain't
not
my
interested.
Deal.
Yeah.
Man, I will tell you the one time that Kris and I strolled down memory lane, we were driving around Nashville, and it's one of those that, man, is he remembering this right? But he pointed out where the Tally Ho used to be, where his place was that he lived. And I thought, man, I'm so glad that I got to know Kris in the era I got to know Kris in.
Me too.
Because he was when he got me talking to my dad again. It was an odd big brother, father, dear friend relationship. But the one quote that I use the most, and I love the fact that you use this in your book, was how I would describe Kris, how Dylan described Johnny Cash when he said he was the North Star, and you could set your shit by him and you'd get there. And I always felt Kris was that way for me. And
he was definitely my creative North Star.
Very much so. And I know we're coming up on a year. September 29th will be a year. Tamara, I wish you hadn't had to make that call, but I'm glad it was you that made it when you called and told me. And you said, hey, the press is going to know in like 5 hours or whatever. We got to. And when I got the news, I was talking to my daughter and her mom and my girlfriend. And my phone hung in my hand, and I just said, Uncle Kris died. And I don't know why I thought it would never happen. I knew he was getting, older, and the mental decline or the memory was kind of slipping a little bit.
I was trying to call the people that I thought should know before it hit the press, and I was driving from the Hartford airport up to my dad's in New Hampshire, and I'll just never forget, just call after call after call, trying to get those done.
And again, I know that sucks, but I'm glad that Rodney and probably Steve, I'm glad those folks got a chance to hear it from you. Because that's how we would have wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit, because Kris wasn't the only legendary singer-songwriter that you've worked with. Can we talk about Guy for a bit? Guy Clark? I will tell you, so Without Getting Killed or Caught, obviously a fantastic book, a fantastic film. We're going to talk about those here shortly. But you referenced the Guy Clark time in Poets and Dreamers. And I wasn't even there. I only did 2 shows with Guy. I never had a conversation with him. I remember him blowing up at the sound engineer both times. But that's
it's known for that.
Beside the point. But I was so touched when he gave you Susanna's Diaries.
And me too.
Because it's such a testament to who you are. It's such a testament that Guy wanted the story told right. And I love the fact that you said, when you were writing Without Getting Killed or Caught and got Guy on board, you're not going to let him read it till after it's published. Well,
I didn't want to write I don't know what word I'm looking for. I didn't want it to be something that Guy was like, oh no, this is what happened. This would happen. Mm-hmm. This would happen. I wanted to be a reporter and go get the real story and write the real story. And you can't do that if the subject is involved in that way with approvals.
For sure.
Now he was very involved in that. We spent days and days and days and hours talking about everything. And I went through every paper in his house, all his stuff. And he was very trusting.
God bless him. I remember at when the Woody Guthrie Center gave Kris the Woody Guthrie Prize, which was shortly after Guy had passed.
That was the thing at Cain's, right?
Yes, that was at Cain's. Yeah. And we were backstage, and Ramblin' Jack and Rodney, and you and Rodney, I heard you tell Rodney, I miss Guy. And I walked away because I felt like I was eavesdropping on a conversation that was between the two of you. And I remember before everybody came out, I had told the folks at Cain's that were involved, hey, emotions might be raw because Guy was an influence to everybody. If you've ever, picked up a guitar.
And that was just a few months after his death.
It was very, very new. And I don't think, Guy Clark, I don't think the foundation or the nonprofit, the state had been set up yet. It was, everybody was still kind of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But Guy Clark was such a massive influence on so many songwriters. And I remember watching, I think it was Heart-Worn Highway, who is Guy Clark again? And realizing I knew a bunch of Guy Clark songs. I just, wasn't as deep with him. How did your relationship with Guy start?
Leroy Parnell. Do you know him?
I worked with Leroy a couple times.
Yeah. So he took me to Guy's house on April 1st, 2000. It was a Saturday. And we were there for like 9 hours. And I wouldn't smoke pot with Guy or drink. And hardly anybody ever said no to Guy. And so he really liked me right from that moment. He couldn't talk me into partying with him that time.
Peer pressure didn't apply on that day. Peer pressure didn't.
Yeah, on that day.
I will tell you,
he did another time.
You were able to with obviously. Again, I only did 2 shows with Guy, and we didn't hang out. He wouldn't know me from Adam. I do remember him going off on the sound guy both times, and the second time I realized, I think this is part of his routine or
whatever. Yeah. It really upset me when he did that.
But if he smoked before a show, I don't know or wouldn't remember, whatever. I do remember, because you referenced this in the book, the first, because I think everybody should partake in cannabis daily. I think it'd do the world a lot of good. I don't myself. I never have. It's not my thing. But I remember the first time I realized what a contact high was, I was on Willie's bus.
Oh, yeah.
For about 35 or 40. And it hit me, and I said, oh, my God, I'm high. Yeah. I was paying way too much attention to what people were saying. And it really did happen. And I don't know if Guy was a user to the extent that Willie is, or...
oh, yeah. They use together a lot. I would interview Guy with a scarf over my face as a filter. Because
there was just so much smoke, either tobacco or marijuana going on. And
I still would get a contact high. Yeah.
You could only work for 4 or 5 hours at a time.
Exactly.
I will tell everyone, if you haven't, without getting killed or caught, when I read that, I never realized, I may have told you this before, I never realized the role Susanna played, like how strong she was in both Towns and Guy's life.
Yes.
And you leave going, man, what would have happened if Susanna hadn't been part of it? Guy may not have been Guy, or Towns may not have been Towns. I think those would have done their own thing anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But she really played.
Susanna probably would have been better off.
by far. I think, and Guy himself probably would have been the first to tell you that.
Yeah.
But having worked with Guy, and then you did the book, and then the film Without Getting Killed or Caught. Speaking as a man who's tried to make 2 documentaries, and both times, one time not very far into, 50, 60 hours of footage, and then I realized I could do it. And the second time we had money, and would you ever make another documentary? Because I couldn't get through one, and I've started twice.
The only way I would ever do another film is if there was so much money that you could hire everybody you could ever use. We had such a small team, and there's so much heavy lifting to do. It was just too much. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, very hard. And
expensive.
I don't think...
And we didn't have everybody that I thought we needed.
I don't think people realize. So I was going to do a documentary about Lubbock specifically, because of Buddy Holly and Joe and everybody that came from there.
Yeah.
And I realized, man, I thought I had financial backing. I realized the music alone was going to be well into 6 figures. Yeah,
our music for Without Getting Killed or Caught was about $125,000, I think. Yeah.
And you have to. The way rights and usage and everything goes, there's no option to not do that.
No.
And that,
not if you want music. And for a music documentary, the music's pretty important.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Can you imagine a music documentary without it? Like somebody reciting the lines? And I told people, I said, I don't care if you try to do it yourself. If you have Harry Fox doing it, it's going to cost just a ton of money. And if you don't have a Harry Fox or somebody, you're going to miss something that you probably should have done or should have caught or whatever.
Right. And we had a music supervisor who was a seasoned, knew what she was doing to make sure all the licensing was done properly.
And it's still.
Yeah.
Well,
she's now the music supervisor for all of Taylor Sheridan's stuff.
So she's working 6 full times. He's got so many projects going on that are all fantastic. But Without Getting Killed or Caught did get made. Mm-hmm. And then was it South by Southwest and then the premiere got canceled? Was that?
Yeah, we were set to premiere at South by Southwest.
Easy for you to say.
South by Southwest 2020. And a week before, the festival was canceled because of COVID. So that was that.
And were you just in limbo? Hey, was there a time where you said, man, we'll just shelve it and not? Or were you like, we've got to get the financial recouping. We got to try to do this?
Well, during COVID, I didn't care about the movie at all. So, that first year of 2020, we were all home waiting for them to get a vaccine, isolating from each other. I didn't care about the movie at all. And then 2021, we got in South by the virtual festival they had. Mm-hmm. And we decided to build our release plan around that. And we all got vaccinated so we could do outdoor screenings and things like that.
Again, kind of a bit of a side note, but when you mentioned that, how I couldn't imagine being a publicist for any group in the music industry these days. I don't think people understand. And I know groups that were quote unquote successful that still work day jobs because they didn't understand how to publicize something, how to release something, how to get the right folks on board. How has that changed in the last, if can you even begin to talk about how it's changed in 25 years or whatever?
Well, it's changed so much that I stopped doing it because there was too steep of a learning curve for me to do all the TikTok and Bandcamp and, all the stuff you have to do now. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to learn. I mean, I know the basic social media stuff, but I didn't want to get so deep into that and have to become proficient. And after working with Kris and Guy, I didn't want to work with young people. I didn't want to start over.
I hear you. And there's nothing wrong with that because
not only that, but they need someone young and hip. And I'm not either of those.
I would beg to differ. On that.
Well,
I
hate hip and I'm definitely not young. So yeah.
The current role that I have, which luckily for me is geared towards a demographic of 55 and over. I've told
that would
them
be great.
And I've told them, I said, man, I can handle this because I was with Chuck and Kris and BB. But when you get beyond what I call traditional marketing, TV, radio, print, I'm not your guy. And it was a tough lesson to learn that I wasn't. But
yeah,
and I may not have had a career if Kris's fan base had MySpace pages and TikTok accounts or what, because it was easy to market to them. But it really has changed. And I'm lucky in that our marketing department has folks who are 22 years old and get all of that. And they have folks who are older and understand more traditional ways. But it really has changed. And I think 20 years from now, it's not going to look anything like it does today.
Right. So for the Guy Clark Family Foundation stuff, I have younger people that handle all of that stuff because they know how to do it.
Are you finding that great songs appeal to any age, or is there, because I know Johnny Cash kind of seemed to have 3 or 4, regenerations of his career. depending
Yeah.
on how he was exposed.
Well, young songwriters and musicians absolutely love Guy and Kris. But I don't know that the general public that are young get that.
No, I would probably say that they don't.
Yeah.
And even the experience I have is it's a lot like those musicians, those songwriters are a lot like a nonprofit. The folks who know them love them, but not enough people know them because ever since, and I had this conversation with my daughter, which you can appreciate. I was trying to explain how MTV changed music. And I said, you have to understand, Elton John had a number one song for 24 or 25 consecutive years. And since MTV came along, nobody's had that type of longevity.
Right.
Not even, country music, which is famously loyal. And you look at some of the folks from the class of 89, even they didn't have number ones for 25 years in a row. Eye candy became more important than ear candy. And it seems like these days it's who says something the loudest or the most outrageous or the brightest pop is what's getting the attention instead of what the songs have to say.
Well, everything's so fragmented. Mm-hmm. When we were young, there were 3 network television broadcast network, AM radio was kind of the same in every town.
Yep.
Pop radio. So we were all hearing the same thing, watching the same thing, reading the same thing. And now there's all these different lanes. So it is really different.
It is. I'm of the Billy Joel. It's still rock and roll to me. There's 2 or 3 genres, whereas it's post, pre, neo, punk. There's so many labels that go out there. But speaking of, what a great segue, because this morning I decided I'm going to play a game with Tamara. This is
okay.
Because it's not that often that I have guests that I feel comfortable labeling as an expert or at least extremely knowledgeable in a certain area of music.
So we've known each other a long time.
Oh yes. Yeah. Oh yes. We're going to play a quick round. I have 10 artists and we're going to play a quick round of Americana or not Americana.
Great.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 0 being there's no way this person could be ever labeled as American, or 10 being this person exudes what Americana is all about. Give me a number and thoughts on the next 10 artists. Some I think are easier and some I think may be more difficult. Number 1, Steve Earle.
10.
I have told people before, Steve Earle, if you want a definition of Americana, Steve Earle is who it would be.
Yeah.
Number 2, Taylor Swift.
8.
8. And do you think with somebody like Taylor, is it a once Americana, always America, always welcome, always Americana, or?
Taylor is a songwriter. And so even when she gets older and finishes her, rock star, pop star phase, she's going to be writing great songs. And therefore, I put her in the Americana camp. I can't give her a 10 yet, but 10 more years, I would. I probably will.
She'll probably earn her way up there. By the way, my daughter, Christine Dillon's favorite picture is Kris and Taylor doing the hearts with their hands.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
And I explained to her, I said, here's the deal, Sugar Bear. You have good songwriters and you have smart songwriters, and every now and then you have somebody who's both. And Taylor, because, the largest grossing tour in world history, I mean, it was its own iconoclastic thing, is because she, Justin Bieber, whoever, you get a appeal early on, and then you feel this need to prove that you've matured. So you make these leaps in the songs you do, and your audience feels a little bit alienated. Taylor brought her entire audience along for the whole journey, and still does.
And anybody that knows anything about music, Taylor's undeniable.
Oh, yes.
And when people tell me that she can't sing, I'm just like, okay, I think to myself, this person's so ignorant, I can't even argue with them.
They have no idea what
because Taylor is brilliant. And she's like the Beatles,
Truly.
Cultural phenomenon, great songwriter, great singer, great performer, great person. No one can tell me anything bad about Taylor Swift. I'll get very insulted.
I will tell you, probably the only time I was concerned when I took my daughter to Eras, we went and saw it in Toronto. Will the concert live up to the hype? I don't think the hype lived up to the concert. It was phenomenal. I mean, every production, the graphics, how you walked in the door, it was so well done. And Taylor would be,
she's a pro.
She is. And she could retire now and her statement would be solid and forever in place. But I hope she's not done yet. Because,
no, she's too young. She's got to keep going.
She's got to keep going. Americana or not, number 3, Billy Strings.
Oh, yes. I mean, he is bluegrass for sure, but he embodies everything that Americana is. Yeah.
Number 4, because I have my thoughts on this one, and I think I know your answer. Number 4, Brandi Carlile, who I've never had the chance to work with. I'm just a fan of.
Oh, yeah. Brandi, she really embraced the Americana label, the organization, the people, and has been a flag waver for Americana. Absolutely.
God bless her. And I tell you, just as a side note, man, I only had the chance to do a handful of Shooter Jennings shows before he said, man, I'm going to kind of focus on the production. But everything that guy's touched, Tanya,
great
Turnpike, Brandi, and from what I've heard, and I've never been in the studio with him, like he's a musician's producer. He gets it, having been there, having been born and raised in it. I hope they do more work together is what I'm trying to say.
I do too.
Number 5, I'm going to start some controversy here. The Eagles. Did you say the Eagles?
So I would, because before the term Americana was happening, they were part of that LA country rock sound, which is one of the seedlings of Americana. So yeah, I would say the Eagles, yes.
Number
10.
Definitely a 10. Number 6, and I'm throwing this one in because I know you've had the chance to work with him, and I don't think most people would have realized this. Number 6, Elvis Costello.
Well, I never really worked with Elvis, but he was part of the Americana show I produced. And Kris has done some stuff with him. So, yeah, I think a 10, again, because what he was doing is more the rock side of Americana. But yeah, he's under the umbrella. Yeah.
I think my daughter asked me if Elvis was punk, and I don't think you can be Americana and not have a little punk attitude.
You got to have a little punk in you.
You have to have some of it there. Some of these, by the way, I mentioned are easier than others. Number 7, Emmylou Harris.
Yeah, 10.
I was going to say, is Tamara going to give an 11 on this?
Yeah. I could. It's Emmy.
Number 8, Neil Young. Neil's had a lot of different labels in his life.
He has had a lot of different labels.
And he's embraced all of them.
Right. But again, it goes back to he's a songwriter. And he sings his own songs, plays his own instrument, has the history that falls under, country rock and singer-songwriter. And so, yeah, definitely.
Number 9, and I say this because when I talk about America, which isn't very often, I make it sound like I'm discussing this every day, but when it comes up, I always list this person, and no one has seemed to agree with me. But number 9, I would say Tom Petty is Americana.
Absolutely. 10.
Thank you. Okay.
Again, songwriter.
Which is what it comes down to.
He's on the more rock side, but it's about his songs, right? And if you're writing your own songs, singing your own songs, playing your own instrument, and you have a roots background, you're Americana. Tom Petty's Americana.
The last one, this may be the first 11 you give, and I am bringing this name up as much because I love sharing this story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how Americana is Joe Ely?
He is an 11. Okay, Joe. Where to even start? Okay, Lubbock.
That's why I saved him for last.
Yeah, so it's in his blood. Buddy Holly influence, the Flatlanders, Towns. Yeah, I mean, Joe, singer, songwriter, musician, rocker, dear friend. He's an 11. And Joe is the reason that I started a lot of the projects I started because of Joe. So
is it safe to say that Joe is as fantastic as an individual as he seems?
Yes.
Because I've only worked with him once or twice. I don't really know him at all that well.
I love Joe Ely. Love him.
I will tell you this story because I know you can appreciate it. So Connie and I did the first Peltier benefit here. And there was, Americana all through that because we had Shooter and we had...
Because Connie loves Americana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the two things that I was determined as the guy who was in charge was number one, we were either going to close the night with Hank Williams' I Saw the Light or Steve Goodman's City of New Orleans. And when Arlo came on board, I kind of wanted to keep it balanced, so I went with Hank Williams. But when Connie and I chatted, and I said, how are we going to start this show? There's, 6,000-7,000 people in attendance. You want to set the bar high, but keep the bar high. And I said, Connie, hear me out. Let's have Joe start it. Solo acoustic by himself. Mm-hmm. And Connie said, oh, that's a genius idea. And we had, because, when you do a show like this, people are going to be leaving as fans of an artist that they may not have been into before they left. And I asked Joe, I said, how do you want me to, our DJ bailed that morning, so I wound up acting as MC all night. How do you want me to introduce you? And he said, man, it's not necessary. And so like Kris, he just strode out and opened with me and Billy the Kid. And at the end of the song, standing ovation from all 5,000 people. And I thought, man, this maybe the only smart decision I ever made was having him set that. And it was, of course, every artist only got 4 or 5 songs, but everybody wanted more Joe Ely.
Well, and the Outlaw Country channel on Sirius XM.
Jeremy Teppers. Yeah. I knew Jeremy through that.
Jeremy's baby. Joe Ely was the poster child for that.
Joe Ely has been a poster child for that.
And Jeremy told me that Joe Ely was the poster child of that.
Jeremy was in Tulsa for that concert, which is how I got to meet him. It was just kind of odd deal. In fact, here's a story. We were sitting around. It's Jesse Coulter and Rita and Shooter and Connie and me, and Arlo wasn't there yet. I think Lisa may have been down there. And Jeremy Tepper were kind of circled in because anybody facing out is going to be seen and cause a commotion. And Jeremy kind of shoulder bumps me, and there's a guy sitting at a table by himself across the way, and he said, hey, is that Peter Coyote? None of us had met Peter Coyote, although Peter jumped on board and said, yeah, we'd love to. And I said, man, I think it is. And so we went up, and Peter wound up joining us because he's been on board with Leonard's thing since day one. And so I found myself in a situation I know you can appreciate where I'm sitting around a table with all these massive, not just influential artists, but fantastic people. Mm-hmm. And you kind of ask yourself, man, how lucky am I? What did I do right in a previous life to be able to be a part of this moment? And then, I'm reading through your book and I'm realizing, man, how lucky have we been, Tamara? Like, so lucky to be able to do the things that we do and have the conversations and be a part of the moments that we've had. I will tell you, and being artists and creators with other artists. That's how I look at it, I learned way too late because I was probably in my mid-30s. If I'm not working on something creative, I'm not particularly happy. I can't imagine retiring. Like, I can imagine backing off some things, but I can imagine just sleeping in, watching TV, and going to bed. Like, that's not going to be my thing, I don't think. Speaking of, though, I do have one more quick note I want to talk about. I love the fact, so you're called in to act as advisor with Ken Burns' country music documentary. Not just me, a group of us. You were one of several people, I should say. Yeah. A fantastic documentary. And you mentioned in the book that Ken said, hey, and I'm probably, tell me if I'm mistaken here, I'm looking for historical accuracy. I don't really need so much the creative insight or the vision of how it's going to go, because I have that pretty much nailed down. Yeah. Is that a fair statement that was Ken's approach? He told us he is not interested in our creative input. And I loved that. It's his film, him and his team. Mm-hmm. It's their film, not our film. He just wanted to make sure everything was factual, but it's his creative vision. And that really gave me permission to be the same way with my Guy film. I was like, not taking anybody's creative advice. And that's exactly and I think, though, not just with the film, because like I said earlier, you told Guy, hey, you're not going to read it till it's published when it came to the book. So I knew you kind of already had a little bit of that, man, I'm going to write it the way that I think it needs to be written. not through.
Yeah, I don't
necessarily
ever share my projects in advance with anyone.
Although I'm sure some people have. I would be willing. Is it safe to say Tamara would walk away from a project if an artist said, "Hey, I'm going to get approval rights before we go into something"?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't.
No.
That's why I love Tamara Saviano.
Well, if someone was going to give me millions of dollars, then maybe I'd do it.
Then it may be worth it.
But my projects are little projects that don't make money. So,
But they bring enjoyment to people.
And enjoyment to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I do them. If I was going to do something, someone wanted to hire me, they got to pay me a lot of money. Yeah.
I will tell you, I don't think
there's the difference.
But you're at the point where you've kind of reserved the right to be that way. I think I am too. I don't think I've ever gotten as many phone calls about Kris, not when Woody Guthrie Prize was not when he was coming to town, as when that documentary came out and people said, "Shit, I had no idea how big of an influence he really was."
Yeah, that was fun.
It was a good time, and
it was my role as an advisor to work on the Americana part, and Kris and Guy and Towns and that thing, and it was fun.
Man, I still am just because I thought I was hip on Towns, and again, the role that Susanna played and that kind of triangle that they had going on, that was such an eye opener. So thank you. Never stop writing, Tamara.
I'll try not to.
And the next time we're together, you're signing this, by the way.
I will.
I won't mark up a book, but I have different bookmarks that I like to go back and reread passages because I love the writing so much.
Oh, thank you, Johnny. That's really sweet.
Tamara, we've got our final 5, because I do want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to take all of it. Now, for all these questions, there's no time limit. Take as long as you want. You have to check your modesty at the door. That's why I start with this first one.
Okay.
Tamara Saviano, what's the greatest compliment you've ever received?
Kris telling me I was his best friend.
I just told my girlfriend earlier, I said, I'm going to bet Kris saying it was, and genuinely meaning that, because I heard that multiple times.
Yeah.
I don't think could you ever hope for a better compliment?
No, and I mean, I understand his memory was fading and there were probably several best friends, but I loved him saying that to me.
I will tell you, all the time I worked with him, he would say that Bucky was his longest friend, but the term best friend was always yourself. And I know the last time Kris and I were in person, he'd come to Tulsa because Scotty Joss was going into the Fiddler's Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Wasn't having a good morning. And Jody was there. Lisa was with him, of course. And I think he knew me, but I don't think he was putting 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
And we got a hug and I love you. Love you. And then I think we had one more FaceTime call maybe after that. And he always said love you at the end, but I don't think
last word he said to me was love, and he wasn't speaking then. So
it was nonverbal. Yeah. There at the end. Number 2. And I added this question to my repertoire of podcast questions because I was so curious and asked you directly when we were in Chicago. So this is a repeat. Tamara, how long were you doing what you do before you realized I can do this? Because I asked you, I said, how long were you at it before you realized, man, this is for me and I can do what I do?
I don't know if I'm going to give you a different answer than I did.
You sure can.
I don't know what I'm doing now.
You're still trying to figure it out?
Still trying to figure it out.
I will tell you, I know a promoter friend of mine who's pretty successful, and his test of younger new promoters is he'd ask them, do you think you have this figured out? And if they say, yeah, he knew they didn't. But if they said, man, no, I don't even know half of it yet, then he's like, okay, maybe these folks are at it. I'm
trying to figure it out as I go.
I know when you and I were chatting, you said it took a good 5 to 7 years before you felt confident. Like, hey,
I felt confident, but especially, like we were talking earlier about how things continue to change, and I'm trying to change with them, but also do things I really want to do and let go of things that I really don't want to do anymore. And that's hard to figure out.
As I get older, that the things I want to do, it's getting narrower and narrower. And the chance to be able to do them is getting narrower and narrower.
Right.
And I don't know if that's making life easier or driving me crazy more some days.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 64 and I come from a family of people that live long. So I'm hoping that I get to live long, but I don't have time to waste anymore. I've got to just do the things I really want to do.
I remember Kris and Lisa and I talking once, and I asked them, I said, what is a year like? Because I'd made the comment to my therapist, I'm so much more patient these days. And my therapist said, you're not more patient, you're just older and time goes by quicker. And I said, oh. Yeah. And sure. I remember Kris and Lisa, Kris saying a year was probably like a week to me. Mm-hmm. And
that's how it feels.
And it was an eye-opening conversation. And I said, man, I don't want to spend time doing stuff I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
One of those things being a podcast. Number 3, what is your perfect musical moment? And I describe that as, what is a song that's so tied to a memory you can't hear the song without being taken back to that day in 82 or 79 or 93? Oh, or whatever.
I have so many of those.
Pick a couple.
But I'm going to go with one that's more recent. I saw Elton, our favorite, in Manchester, England in 2023.
So that would have been Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour.
Farewell Yellow Brick Road. And he came out and I just started crying. And I cried through the whole thing because I was 9 when I discovered him and went through my whole life with him. Now he was retiring. I'm making changes. I can listen to his music forever, but not going to see him in concert anymore. And I can still feel that night, like viscerally. Mm-hmm. Joy and grief, but mostly joy.
And pure, unfettered joy, like the joy that only music can bring. Man, yeah. I will tell you, with Elton, with Taylor, even with Pink, my daughter and I both, when the concert starts, we're both welled up. And I told Christine, I said, Sugar Bear, you're in the presence of this person that created like a soundtrack of your life, a big chunk of it, and brought you so much joy. And they're up there 10 feet from you or 100 feet from you or whatever, doing it. And that's one of the reasons I got into, the live concert side of things.
And you're in that community with others
who feel it and
want to be there and love that. That's such an energy.
And I call it the moment where you look over and somebody is singing, they're completely forgotten who they are, that they're surrounded by strangers in a city and they're so caught up in the music. And I knew early on I could never create that, but I could help put the environment that allowed it to kind of flow back and forth.
Right.
Number 4, we only got 2 left and then we'll be done. What is one truth or one piece of advice that you wish everyone was so familiar with it was a cliche? And yes, it can be an existing cliche if you feel so.
Mind your own business.
Oh, that is a powerful one. Is it one that you don't think enough people pay attention to or care about?
Especially now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks that they're allowed to make decisions about other people's lives. It's like, mind your own business. Yeah.
I will tell you, I have a sign in my office that I hung in 2007 after Kris and I had a conversation, and he told me, don't let the bastards get you down.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And I hung it, and I look up at it maybe sometimes twice a week, and I say, man, and it's hard. And that's one of the things that I always loved about Kris is I never saw him. I mean, I saw him maybe irritated. I never saw him blowing up angry. I never saw him angry. I never saw Lisa angry. Again, irritated maybe, or it's been a long day, but I never saw either of them lose their cool.
Yeah, me either.
Which I thought was just fantastic. I have heard stories. Danny Timms told me one time when Kris had to fire him, and we were all laughing backstage about this at one of the shows. But last, and I may know the answer to this, I'm trying to guess. If you could join any artist on stage for any song, living or dead, who would the artist be and what song would you sing together?
Elton John, Harmony.
Oh, you didn't even have to think about that. So when you're listening to that in your car, is Tamara belting along with it?
Absolutely.
Man, I can't imagine my life if Elton hadn't met Bern. I remember when I found out that they weren't in the same room when they wrote songs. They mailed them through Royal Mail.
Yeah.
and just being blown away. Because what if those two hadn't met? I don't even remember the story of how they met, but yeah, definitely a big chunk of my soundtrack. And again, my daughter's first concert memory is her and I singing along to, I guess that's why they call it the blues, which she did here. It was at Tulsa. She's been to Tulsa a couple times. Tamara, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, Johnny, always happy to see you.
I can't tell you how much. I am not even sure when I'm going to be in Nashville next, but when I am, hopefully we can get together. And until then, just know that I love you and you're one of my favorite people. And
well, my daughter lives outside of Tulsa, so I need to get back down there.
You should come here next week. No, honestly, I tell people if they ever do need a reason to come to Tulsa, and no one ever does, man, after September is when the weather breaks, because now it's 114 out there. But obviously, if we're in the same city, you're going to get a hug.
Yeah. Well, I love you, Johnny.
I love you too, Tamara. I'll talk to you soon.